Welcome everyone to a webinar on chaos, self-organized criticality, and the modeling of financial market volatility with the application of smart topological data analysis as a way to uncover chaotic and reconstruct chaotic attractors and link these chaotic attractors structure to the markers for self-organized criticality. This webinar will present the results of my latest research, my latest article, on, precisely with this title, on chaos-induced self-organized criticality in stock market volatility, namely in the daily trading sessions. It turns out that the daily trading sessions amplitudes of stock indexes and also individual company stock show markers of self-organized criticality. And we'll be discussing what self-organized criticality is. But this self-organized criticality has an underlying, the source of this self-organized criticality is an emergent or are emergent chaotic attractors that are present for each of these different financial indexes and stock market and individual company stock. So stock market volatility has underlying chaotic attractors. And these chaotic attractors in turn lead to allow one to explain both the turbulence and the markers of what is called self-organized criticality. This is a specific phenomenon that can be observed in simulations of complex systems with coupled chaotic maps and in individual chaotic maps that lead to self-organized criticality, so chaos-induced self-organized criticality. But in this webinar, we'll be seeing precisely this chaos-induced self-organized criticality occurring in actual data from financial markets. So let's dive in. My name is Gonçalves. I'm an associate professor at Lusophone University. I'm an integrated researcher in the Transdisciplinary Research Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship Ecosystems, TRIE, and I'm researching on complexity, chaos, risk, quantum technologies, artificial intelligence, strategic studies, studies in intelligence and security, and finance. So this webinar will be focused on my latest publication, the article which was just published in the International Journal of Swarm Intelligence and Evolutionary Computation, and it deals with chaos-induced as I said earlier, chaos-induced self-organized criticality in stock market volatility, and we'll be applying smart topological data analysis. And we'll be showing the article's main findings and how smart topological data analysis can be employed as a state-of-the-art and very robust approach for nonlinear time series analysis and for chaotic, identifying chaos in nonlinear time series data and for attractor reconstruction and analysis. So let's dive in then with the first point, which is looking at smart topological data analysis. So smart topological data analysis involves, before showing these articles, involves when applied to chaotic time series analysis, involves combining topological adaptive AI and topological data analysis methods with chaos theory. And this is the core of smart topological data analysis applied to chaotic time series analysis. I applied them in my last two articles before this one, and this one is in direct relation with these my previous two articles. So smart topological and data analysis, I applied it to SARS-CoV-2's epidemiological data and found that there are low dimensional chaotic attractors in SARS-CoV-2's regional epidemiological data for different regions. Um, and this was tested for all the major for all world regions, and the the methods of smart topological data analysis were applied here, not only for addressing the patterns and the structure of these chaotic attractors, but also in the case of Oceania, where it was identified bifurcation. The methods of smart topological data analysis were applied for embedding, not only for studying the attractors and the predictability of these attractors, employing adaptive AI solutions, but also for calibrating the embedding dimension. In this case, the application of the false nearest neighbors method, which can be used in embedding, could not be applied because of the bifurcation. We could apply which leads to a can lead to a dimensional change or an attractor structural change. But the smart topological data analysis methods that we'll be seeing here and reviewing here can be applied in those cases to extract the best embedding that allows an adaptive AI using a topological learning unit to predict the series, including the bifurcation. So embedding can be used in the case of bifurcations, slightly different from the case of an attractor. In the case of an attractor, the embedding tries to uncover the attractor's dimensionality. But in the case of where a bifurcation occurs, the embedding must be able to allow an adaptive topological learner, so an adaptive AI system equipped with a topological learning unit to predict the bifurcation, to be able to have a good performance in the prediction of the bifurcation when it occurs, and the consequences of that bifurcation, and the continued prediction of the series after the bifurcation occurs. So this has there's the attractor stability change. In these same methods for embedding were applied to low dimension to the hospital occupancy from COVID-19 in US and Canada, and also here were uncovered low dimensional chaotic attractors in their daily hospital occupancy. So these two applications of smart topological data analysis provided with a basis, a methodological basis, combining those elements of chaos theory, topological adaptive AI systems, and topological data analysis methods. And this methodological basis, which was shown to be effective in the case of epidemiological problems, I decided to apply them also to finance. So, and this is the context of the present webinar. So smart topological data analysis can be used as for attractor reconstruction, prediction, and also topological profiling of complex systems dynamics. And this is the major power of smart topological data analysis. So it can be used as a new method for to be able to find a good embedding in terms of to reconstruct an attractor, to predict, so in the case of prediction using AI systems, and also for topological profiling of complex systems dynamics in terms of where here different methods of topological data analysis can be used. And we'll be seeing some of them employed here in the case of financial market data. So the major issues, the major scientific fields with which we'll be dealing are risk science, chaos theory, and self-organized criticality. And the basic the paradigmatic basis for this will be complexity research paradigm, which is transversal to these fields. So let's look first at risk science. So risk science takes risk as its object of research and problem, and in this case works risk from the medieval Latin, from its root in the medieval Latin term resicum, which synthesized in the context of maritime law the three notions of periculum, peril, threat, fortuna, fortune, luck, destiny, and uncertainty. So to play for one's destiny in situations where there are threats and opportunities with an outcome still open or unknown to the player. So this is risk science. So risk science addresses risk as its object of research and problem. And the issue here is that it works on risk from a complexity research paradigm and using methodologies that come from complexity science. But we'll be seeing that in a moment. So risk science, looking at risk as a name for a concrete systemic situation involving threats, opportunities, and uncertainty. And here one must not confuse risk in systemic terms with the human measurement of risk using probabilities. So this is a major point. We are looking risk in terms at risk in terms of concrete systemic situations, of concrete systemic dynamics, and in particularly involving complex systems. So major theories of interest to risk science. There are several. We are dealing here with an interdisciplinary field, and that uh, uh, draws upon cybernetics and complexity and the complexity paradigm, working on with methodologies coming from those areas, and in particular with networks, complexity, chaos, deterministic chaos, and stochastic chaos. Uh, and stochastic chaos is a growth within the theory of chaos, within chaos theory. So involving not only randomness generated by the system's own dynamics, we'll be seeing that in a moment, but also incorporating external shocks. So this can also be called open chaos dynamics. The other point, risk, the concept of risk and emergence. So these are key issues in 21st century research on risk. And two theories in particular are major theories and core theories for risk science. One is chaos theory, the other is the theory of self-organized criticality. And we'll be working with these two theories and the link between chaos and self-organized criticality. So chaos theory plays a major role in complexity research and also in 21st century risk science. It started as a mathematical theory within the research field of nonlinear dynamics and also physics, so it intersected both, studying random-like dynamics in deterministic equations. That is, even without any noise term, these equations generate random sequences of values. Chaos grew from simulations both in physics, biology, materiology, so a diversity of problems, turbulence modeling, and so on, also finance and economics, and the applications, the relation between the applications and the theory itself led to this interdisciplinary growth of the theory. It expanded to stochastic chaos when working with open systems application that incorporate noise terms in equations. So we have a stochastic process that has a deterministic component that leads to chaos, but also incorporates a noise term. And we can have noise-induced chaos phenomena, for instance, in the case where the dynamics was actually periodic there. The noise can lead to can destroy a periodic window and lead to chaos. So this is one of the phenomena that can occur when we have nonlinear dynamics that can lead to chaos for certain parameters and noise coupled with a noise with external noise. So if the noise term is disconnected, then we still get randomized. We can get random-like dynamics due to deterministic chaos. but the noise adds another element to this dynamics, this random dynamics. So what is chaos? Chaos is bounded non-periodic dynamics with sensitive dependence on initial conditions. This is also called the butterfly effect from Lawrence. It was Lawrence who introduced this concept, butterfly effect, and it caught on in popular culture. The flapping of the wings of a butterfly can produce a hurricane in another part of the world. This is a metaphor, but the idea is that a small fluctuation can be amplified over time exponentially and lead to a different trajectory. This is the concept of the butterfly effect. Regarding in stochastic chaos, this has a noise amplifying dynamic effect. And this is a major point in regarding stochastic chaos. But the sensitive dependence on initial conditions, the concept regarding deterministic chaos, is linked here to the sensitive, and the butterfly effect is linked here to the concept of sensitive dependence on initial conditions. So a slight deviation in initial conditions can lead to an overall different trajectory. So this is sensitive dependence on initial conditions. It is expressed in terms, it can be quantified using the so-called Lyapunov exponents. If there are there are different Lyapunov exponents, the number of Lyapunov exponents corresponding to the dimension of the system in terms of degrees of freedom, which give the dimensionality in terms of phase space or the geometric space for the states of the system that can describe the system's trajectory. So this is the concept of phase space. And the issue is that a small deviation in initial conditions lead to a different trajectory. And the Lyapunov exponents, the maximum Lyapunov exponent is positive in the case of chaos, not positive in the case of non-chaotic dynamics. So this is a major issue. And the other issue is that the Lyapunov exponents, there can be more than one positive Lyapunov exponent. So the Lyapunov spectrum, in the case of attractors with chaotic attractors, usually tends to be negative, but with a few positive Lyapunov exponents. The negative side of the spectrum is negative, means that we have is linked to the dissipative chaos, which usually leads to fractal structure in phase space. So these are major technical points of chaos theory that I'm just reviewing here in terms of in general terms, but we'll be looking at a few of these issues further on and a more closer characterization of chaos. So chaos theory and risk science. A major point is that chaos theory forces us to distinguish between the risk associated with external shocks that disrupt the system from without and the risk endogenously generated by the system's own nonlinear dynamics. And this is a major issue. And in economics, and finance, this was a major point for chaos, because up to that point where chaos was introduced within economics, it was usually thought that randomness was produced by external shocks, random shocks to the system. So or noise terms, external noise terms, and that without these noise terms and without these external shocks, the system would behave deterministically and regularly with a regular orbital, just like, for instance, as a periodic orbit, or stabilizing a fixed point, for instance, or even a quasi-periodic orbit could also be obtained. So the major issue is that an economic system can be unstable in terms of small fluctuations when it is in a chaotic regime, can be unstable, and this is where economic chaos enters, can be unstable in terms of small fluctuations leading to large deviations, which means that in an open chaos dynamics, a small noise term can be amplified and lead to a different trajectory, which introduces a level of unpredictability here. And even without noise, we can have a random dynamics, a random-like dynamics, even though it is deterministic. So chaos introduces this random-like dynamics, and it can be turbulent also. So chaos offers a way in to look at economic cycles, at crisis, economic crisis, crashes, booms, and depressions. So all this can be addressed within a within nonlinear economic dynamics, working with chaos theory as a way into to address chaos. But and there's an issue here. While chaos can have this instability related to small fluctuations leading to a large deviation, there is a stability in chaos linked to an attractor. So the attractor is stable, is invariant, and the system tends to that the orbits, or at least in the basin of attraction for that attractor, will lead to that attractor. And once they are in the attractor, they never leave that attractor. The attractor is chaotic, so it has it has this uncertainty associated with the butterfly effect, but at the same time it has topological structures and topological regularity, and this is an issue that can be so chaos is a more complex form of order in complex systems dynamics. And we'll be looking at that soon enough. So chaos can arise in with very few degrees of freedom, but it can in equations with in the case of discrete time systems, so which lead to time series, basic time series, the chaos can occur even with just one degree of freedom, just one dynamical variable, or it can occur in the case of continuous time systems, it needs three dynamical variables. But the issue of dimensionality here is important because we also have networks of chaotic systems that have been researched by a researcher called Kaneko, which is he is a Japanese researcher, and he and other collaborators have worked with, like Tsuda, for instance, have worked with networks of chaotic oscillators. So each oscillator has is a chaotic, leads to a chaotic dynamics. But when linked in networks, we are dealing with complex systems with many degrees of freedom. But but low dimensional attractors can emerge as collective in the collective dynamics of these systems, as well as higher dimensional, and all sorts of patterns can occur here. So this is so chaos has this wide range of examples and systems, both low dimensional, high dimensional, and in the case of high dimensional, different dimensionalities of emergent collective attractors can occur. And we'll be returning to that point soon enough. So what does chaos theory or chaos research involve? The study of bifurcations and catastrophes, and we have bifurcation theory and catastrophe theory involved here. The study of transitions from periodic or quasi-periodic dynamics to chaotic dynamics. The study of chaotic attractors and markers of chaos in different systems, ranging from physics to biology, computer science, and the social sciences. The modeling of turbulence and complexity research, in this case, the networks of chaotic oscillators, And it is strongly linked to computer science, in this case, the link between algorithmic randomness and chaos. And we also have quantum chaos research. Chaos, this wide range of applications and the phenomenon of chaos in complex systems has led to chaos being one of the major theories addressed within complexity science research and within the complexity paradigmatic basis, chaos integrated strongly the complexity paradigmatic basis. Now, about self-organized criticality. Self-organized criticality was the concept was proposed by Beck and by Per Beck and other authors, so Tang, Weisenfeld. This was the first introduction to the concept of self-organized criticality. And the main idea is that there are fractal and multifractal patterns that were observed by Benoit Mandelbrot, which is considered the father of fractal geometry. And these fractals occur both in chaos, in the case of chaotic attractors, but also in nature, in the coastlines, geography, financial markets, turbulence, and so on. So a fractal is basically involves a structure at multiple scales, a rugged structure, rugged geometry at multiple scales. And the issue is that there is a scaling variance here, a fractal dimension that accounts for that expresses the main order associated with the main geometric order associated with the fractal. When we speak of fractal dimension, although there are fractals with integer dimension, but the main issue is that fractals usually have non-integer dimension. So, for instance, let's look at when we look at a sphere. A sphere is a three-dimensional object, but it is smooth. A fractal can have between a sphere, a ball. I'm considering the full ball. The sphere is the two-dimensional border. So, but we can consider the full ball is three-dimensional, a three-dimensional object. But the issue is that it's smooth. A square is two-dimensional. A cube is three-dimensional. So these are objects from classical geometry that are smooth. Objects with a well-defined dimension, integer dimensions. So, but a fractal can have half integer dimensions, so non-integer dimensions. It is between, so for instance, between 2 and 3 dimensions, between 3 and 4 dimensions, between 1 and 2 dimensions, between 0 and 1 dimension. So fractal dimension is, or a fractional, can have a fractional dimension, or a non-integer dimension in general. But multifractals have multiple dimensionalities here involved, a spectrum of, and we speak of a multifractal spectrum there. So fractal scaling and long memory in risk events like earthquakes, financial crashes, biological evolution, and the occurrence of these signatures in what were identified as physical phase transitions. So these are called the critical points, has led to the conjecture by these authors, and the two major articles, the two seminal articles are quoted below, that the complex systems may self-organize to a critical dynamics. So the fractal signatures occur in physical phase transitions, and these fractal signatures, the fact that these fractal signatures occur in complex systems dynamics and in risk dynamics in particular, that were addressed by these authors as well, led them to conjecture that the possibility of complex systems self-organizing to these critical dynamics, and this could explain the occurrence of, in spectral analysis, of 1 over f beta a noise spectrum, the so-called power loss spectrum. As power loss scaling also in extreme events probability distributions. So the main issue in the probability distributions of event scales of power loss scaling has a deep significance, and we'll be seeing this now. So first of all, two markers for fractal structure of fractals in self-organized criticality are basically temporal fractals associated with long memory, with a fractal scaling in the memory of the process. That is one point. The other point that was addressed by these authors were fractals occurring in event size distributions. We'll look at these two before looking at the event size distribution and its implications. We'll look at the long memory. So in rescaled range analysis, which was applied by Mandelbrot and based on the calculation of Hurst for the River Nile, it allowed for the identification of fractal structure in the correlation of a process. It can be identified in power law scaling in the spectral analysis, in basic spectral analysis. This power spectrum is related to the Hurst exponent. The Hurst exponent can have different values. For instance, in white noise, we have a Hurst exponent of minus 0.5, pink noise of 0, which is 1 over F noise, Brownian noise of 0.5, and black noise is greater than 0.5. So black noise processes are persistent processes that tend to occur in natural disasters and other risk events. And here is a quote from Schroeder. The book is basically, I have here the book. The book is, and the letters appear differently appear reversed in the here, but the book is Fractal Chaos, Power Laws, Minutes from an Infinite Paradise, has a very good definition of what black noise is. So black noise phenomena govern natural and unnatural catastrophes like floods, droughts, bear markets, and various outrageous outages such as those of electrical power. Because of their black spectra, such disasters often come in clusters. So this is a major point about relevant for risk science, which is black noise is a strongly persistent, and the Hurst exponent gives us a measure of the persistence of the series. So it's a strongly persistent long memory process with very slow decaying autocorrelations. So power law decaying in the autocorrelations, and this long memory of the process has a problem because leads to a problem because we can have a strong persistence regarding to catastrophes. So when catastrophe occurs, it can last for a while. So and this can also be linked to turbulence, and so and turbulent processes that have long laminar phases and then bursts of activity. And we'll be seeing this in the case of financial markets daily amplitudes. So financial market volatility tends to be characterized by black noise. So power law scaling in event sizes is the other marker of SOC, self-organized criticality, and it is expressed in terms of a power law decay in the probability of events. This means that there is a scaling variance or a fractal law for the events. That is, large events are generated by the same process as small events. So large events, extreme events, do not follow their own law, probability law, apart from the rest of the system's dynamics. And this is a major issue because we think of catastrophes, of large events, as the exception and the normal functioning of the system. But what self-organized criticality indicates here is that in complex systems, we can have the large events, the large catastrophes, are part of the same process that leads to the smaller fluctuations. Even if you amplify the smaller fluctuations, you obtain a more or less similar dynamics in terms of turbulence markers in the case of turbulent series with fractal scaling in event sizes. And this was well expressed in the Jurassic Park novel by Michael Crichton, and this quote expresses very well this issue, that we have soothed ourselves into imagining sudden change as something that happens outside the normal order of things, an accident like a car crash, or beyond our control like a fatal illness. We do not conceive of sudden, radical, irrational, and we could place it under quotes, I'll explain this in a moment, change as built into the very fabric of existence, yet it is. So the issue of irrational change, it is the impact that the change has, that a large event can have on us, a large catastrophe and so on, and the perception that this falls outside the normal order of functioning of the system. This label of irrational could be applied, but in fact, it's that change, and this is well expressed in the quote, is part of the normal order of functioning of the system. So it is actually a rational change. There is a specific, even a specific order, a specific metric that expresses this order, which is the fractal dimension associated with the power law scaling of the event sizes. So that fractal dimension, which can be estimated, expresses how the large change forms part of the same of the endogenous functioning of the system. And the issue is that complex systems can self-organize into these types of dynamics where there is a power law scaling in event sizes, which means that these systems can have sudden changes in behavior, in dynamics, and large jumps, extreme events. But these extreme events form part of the basic order of the system. So it is rational, actually. There is and the rational here, the reason, the proportion, the order is expressed in terms of this. It can be captured by this fractal dimension. So self-organized criticality, and these are the major issues of this is the major point of self-organized criticality for risk science. Extreme events are not outside the same dynamics / order that underlies the small events. They are not outliers in the sense of being outside. They appear as outliers in a statistical analysis, but are actually not outliers when plotted in a logarithmic scale, a double logarithmic scale. They form part of a straight line, an unbroken fractal scaling, that goes from the lower events to the extreme events, the smaller events to the extreme events, so that we can have a sudden catastrophe, and this is part of the order of the system, the natural functioning of the system. So this is these two elements, the long memory processes, the fractal scaling correlations that can be linked also to turbulence, and the black noise, the black noise markers with the Hurst exponents higher than 0.5, as well as power law scaling in event sizes, are two markers of self-organized criticality that become key markers for risk science when dealing with complex systems, with risk associated with complex systems. So chaos can lead also to self-organized criticality, and this is another point. While initially the major proposals by the authors, by Perbeck and his collaborators, were strongly linked to or strongly based on the pile of sand models. The issue that is that chaos can also lead to self-organized criticality. Not the white chaos, and this was chaos with a white noise spectrum, and this was raised by Perbeck in a book on self-organized criticality. And the issue that Perbeck raised was that chaos, at least white chaos, that is chaos leading to a white noise spectrum, cannot lead to the self-organized criticality. However, and self-organized criticality is typically linked to this power law scaling in the memory, but also in the event sizes. However, chaos, the so-called color chaos, which was researched by Chen in financial markets, can induce self-organized criticality because it does not have a white noise spectrum, and this can occur in uh, 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 both continuous time systems, but also in discrete time maps. And discrete time maps can lead to turbulence, to fractal scaling in event sizes, and also to fractal scaling in the memory process, and lead to, therefore, to self-organized criticality to markers. So chaos-induced self-organized criticality corresponds to color chaos or power law chaos. Okay. So let's look at the data set and the applications of this and see this what we have just talked about occur specifically in financial markets. So we'll be dealing with the SPY, and the article that we'll be addressing, the article's main findings deal with the SPY, the Nasdaq, the Russell 2000, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Airbus. And here we have the number of observations, which is a fairly large number of observations for each series. And we'll be looking at the daily amplitudes. That is the difference between the maximum and the minimum price, which gives us a daily measure of trading sessions volatility. So the higher the difference between the maximum price and the minimum price in a trading session give us an idea of the level of fluctuation during that of price fluctuation during a trading session, and can be used as a measure of realized market volatility. So here we have for the SPY, the exchange traded fund on the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, and the Russell 2000 in figure 1. These are figures that come from the article. And the daily trading sessions amplitudes also for Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Airbus on below. And in this case, we find the typical markers of turbulence. So we have the laminar periods and the high jumps and the clustering of volatility. What is interesting is that what we could be looking at as laminar periods are actually turbulent themselves. If we amplify, if we zoom in on this part, for instance, in the case of Airbus, and we amplify it, we would be see lower laminar periods and large jumps at scale. So this is typical of a fractal scaling in turbulence. So so there is, and we'll be seeing that this is a major issue that we'll be seeing linked to self-organized criticality, that with the marker of self-organized criticality, in this case in the event size distribution. So main findings. The Hertz exponents are all larger than 0.7 for these trading for these assets, which indicate a long-range correlations with power law decay. These are markers of black noise, of a black noise-like process. Partial autocorrelations also decay with the power law scaling. So we have here a strongly persistent process. Here we see the event size distribution, and in this picture we'll see, that also comes from the article. I'm not analyzing the article in detail. I'll place the link on the video description to the main references for these articles, for the other two articles on chaos in epidemiology, and also for this article, and you can read it. So the article is open science, so you can read it online and download it from the journal's page. But I'll look at some of the major findings of the article that are relevant to this webinar regarding the relation between self-organized criticality and chaos theory. So first of all, we already saw that there is a scaling in correlations. Here we find scaling and also in the partial autocorrelations. Here we're looking at the scaling of the distributions themselves. So this is the logarithm of the center of class of the histograms, and this is plotted in the x-axis, and in the y-axis is the logarithm of the frequencies. So this is in log scale. What we find is that for lower events, so there's a power law scaling here. After a while, there's a power law scaling leading to linking larger events to smaller events. But there are a few histogram classes here in this region before reaching the power law scaling that have a lower frequency than the power predicted by the power law. So the power law is fitted in the power law scaling region. So what this means is that there are a few laminar periods, the lowest fluctuations have a smaller probability than they would have under the power law, but the major part of the probability distribution is dominated by the power law scaling. That leads from the lower events to the higher events. And what is interesting here is that these are the estimated slopes of these straight lines. And here we have the R square of the regression that we ran for the power law scaling region. And the R squares are all larger than 0.9, than 90%. Then 90%, yes. The p-value associated with the slope is zero, is approximately zero for all the slopes. And what is interesting here of particular relevance is that the slope, which gives the fractal dimension, are all close to each other. They are close to 3. So the fractal dimension for the power law scaling. But there are differences between the different assets. Some are closer to 3, other are below 3, other are above 3. And we have here the fractal dimensions for the power law scaling. So these are two markers. So we have the Hurst exponents, and looking at I'm showing now actually the article in order to show the Hurst exponents. I do not have them in this presentation, but it is relevant to show them in the article. And here, this is the article. And we can see here, the Hurst exponents are here, and they show a strong persistent process. So this is a strong. I'll actually show them in the presentation, but further on. But this is a strongly persistent process, as can be seen, because the Hurst exponents are all higher than 0.7. So so we have here the two markers, typically black noise, power law scaling, identified in rescaled range analysis with a strongly persistent process, and also power law scaling in the event size. We also have power law scaling in the partial autocorrelations, and this is an important point because as can be seen, the power law scaling fits the whole partial autocorrelations until they reach their first zero crossing. So up until the first zero crossing of the partial autocorrelations, we have a power law scaling of the autocorrelation. So they decay following a power law up to their first zero crossing, the partial autocorrelations. And this is very relevant. And the zero crossing of these partial autocorrelations is very long. So you have 15 lags for this, the SPY, the Nasdaq, 19 lags for the Russell 2000 index, 17 lags for Lockheed Martin, 17 lags for Boeing, and 14 lags for Airbus. The aeronautical companies' data is particularly relevant because we are seeing because it was strongly hit by the COVID-19. But we can see that the turbulence is a general turbulence occurring here in the it follows this process in terms of in general. So I'm returning now to the presentation. So it has this consistent process that of self-organized criticality, despite the and external catastrophes like those or extreme events like those of the of the COVID-19 that are shocks that hit the financial dynamics, of course, of the aeronautical companies strongly so, still are integrated in this overall turbulent dynamics of the system. And we'll see that, so which points to a possibility of stochastic chaos, and we'll be seeing that soon enough. So the major characteristic of financial volatility, and shown here in particular, is long memory with slow decaying autocorrelation functions, which means that we are not dealing with white noise processes. So, and this also excludes white chaos as an underlying process, that is chaos with a white noise spectrum. While white chaos has a white noise spectrum, chaos with a power law scaling in the rescaled range analysis is more complex. It can range from differentiable flows to chaotic maps that show turbulence markers in generated series that are close to power law noises, and chaos-induced self-organized criticality. So chaos-induced self-organized criticality is very specific because the fractal scaling is not just in the chaotic attractor; it's in the signal itself. While a differentiable flow is differentiable, self-organized criticality leads to a fractal signal which is not differentiable. And this is very important. So it can only occur in two cases. One is stochastic chaos in continuous time, and then you can have a fractal signal. And the other is in chaos produced by a discrete time map. And here it makes sense, a discrete time map, because we are dealing with daily trading amplitudes. So there are two questions that need to be placed here. Is there a chaotic attractor associated with the daily financial market amplitude? So you know that there are markers of self-organized criticality, very consistent, very clear markers of self-organized criticality in the daily trading amplitudes. So the point is this self-organized criticality induced by chaos? And that was our major question for this article. So is there a chaotic attractor associated with the daily financial market amplitudes? And if so, how can we reconstruct this attractor and find its major properties and the link between these properties and the self-organized criticality properties? So here we have to look at more closely at chaos. So in order to answer these questions, these two major questions, we need to look more closely at the characteristics of chaos. And this is where smart topological data analysis enters. So chaos is bounded, non-periodic with random-looking orbits. This is another feature of chaos, and sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. But there is also another feature of chaos, which is recurrence. So it is a more complex topological order associated with an attractor, and this recurrent structure is associated with a skeleton of unstable periodic orbits, and also related to a stretching and folding dynamics in the case of a strange chaotic attractor, that is a fractal attractor with chaos, that leads to a strange chaotic attractor's fractal structure. So we call it strange because it has a fractal dimension, and it is chaotic. So we have a strange attractor, a strange chaotic attractor. There are strange non-chaotic attractors as well, but here we have the issue is whether in the case of chaos, the stretching is associated with this exponential divergence upon initial conditions, and the folding is linked to the boundedness of the dynamics. So this leads to this stretching and folding process that leads to the attractor's fractal structure. But the issue is that by the chaotic dynamics in the attractor and different initial conditions will lead to the attractor. Even though at the level of the single orbit there is unpredictability associated with the sensitive dependence upon initial conditions, there is this topological order associated with the attractor, which is linked to the fact that in the attractor the system will often revisit the neighborhood of unstable periodic orbits and mirror those orbits for a while, until the sensitive dependence upon initial conditions leads to a divergence from those periodic orbits. And this divergence leads to another neighborhood that will be close to another unstable periodic orbit, especially if there is a dense set of unstable periodic orbits, which leads to this hopping between different or this shadowing of different periodic orbits in chaos, and this can lead to acceleration of a process, to a deceleration, to turbulence, and so on. So this is but this recurrent structure is a higher level of order that can be exploited by topological adaptive AI and used to predict a chaotic dynamics. Used to predict within the limits, of course, of the sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. So there are two phases of smart topological data analysis that can be applied to chaotic time series analysis. So when we are looking at a time series that shows turbulence, and in this case, markers of self-organized criticality, the main issue is whether there is an attractor here, a chaotic attractor. And to address this, smart topological data analysis can be applied. And there are two phases. Phase one is to deploy an adaptive AI with a topological machine learning unit for selection of parameters for attractor reconstruction, namely the embedding dimension, to select the embedding dimension. And this is effective, as I said earlier, also for the embedding of in cases where there occur bifurcations, that is, changes in attractor stability and changes to another dynamical regime. Phase two involves employing chaotic time series analysis methods in conjunction with topological data analysis methods to characterize the attractor. And we'll be seeing a few of these methods applied here that were applied in the article, and the two phases applied. So phase one, attractor reconstruction. So attractor reconstruction is about finding the when applying smart topological data analysis, is about finding the topological order that leads to a high predictive performance of a target signal from an embedded trajectory. So what's this embedded trajectory? So this was developed by Takens, and the idea of attractor reconstruction involves delay embedding in a d-dimensional Euclidean space. And there is the so-called Takens theorem, which shows that given a time series and for particular for a particular lag and embedding dimension, we can reconstruct the original attractor using a time series of observations. And this was the origin of the idea of delay embedding. So, given a time series, we produce a phase, we embed it in d-dimensional Euclidean space with a phase point expressed by the corresponding to these coordinates that result from the original series, but using a specific lag and a specific dimension. The equation is shown there in the slide. So there are two problems here: how to choose the lag and how to choose the dimension. What is the right lag and what is the dimension? There are different ways of choosing both the lag and both the dimension addressed in the literature, ranging from mutual information in the case of the lag to the first zero crossing of the autocorrelation function, and the dimension is also chosen. There are different methods, ranging from the correlation dimension to the false nearest neighbors approach, and these different methods were covered by the literature on over the years on chaotic time series analysis. So, in our case, we have a problem. Which is the fact that the system has long memory with a power law decay in both the autocorrelations of the time series and also the partial autocorrelation function. So for long memory processes with power law decay in the correlations, which is characteristic of self-organized criticality, the use of the first zero crossing of an autocorrelation function provides for too long a lag, because it decays so slowly that we will get a too long lag for embedding. Mutual information is also, this was a problem that I observed in the case of the epidemiological series, which is if one used the mutual information, the lag was too short. In the case of the epidemiological series, we also had black noise-like power spectra in the case of the epidemiological series in the other two articles that I quoted here. There are they? In these two articles, the issue that was raised in order to for attractor reconstruction, and the attractor was effectively reconstructed, but the issue was that the use of the mutual information was too low a lag, and it led to too low lag and to a squeezing of the attractor, and it also did not work well. What worked well in the case of the epidemiological series was to look at the quarantine period, and if one used the quarantine period suggested by the World Health Organization, one got good embeddings. But there is no general criteria. One has to look at the type of series. There is no general criterion. So we need to look at each series and see what works. So this is one problem in terms of lag's choice. In this case, in the case of power law scaling with long memory in autocorrelation functions, with very slow decaying autocorrelation functions linked to black noise-like spectra, it is best to use the first zero crossing of the partial autocorrelation function. It may provide a better solution because it does not lead to too short a lag, nor to a too long lag. And it provided for a better solution in the case of can provide for a better solution in the case of signals with evidence of SOC, of self-organized criticality. So this was what we used, and we saw that the lag in the case of, in terms of, was 15 for the first when the first zero crossing of the partial autocorrelation function led to a lag of 15 for the SPY, for the Nasdaq 15 as well. For the Russell 2019, it is a big, and we saw that to reach this lag, it followed the power law decay. We saw this previously in when we revisited the article online. For Lockheed Martin, we got a lag of 17, and for Boeing as well, and a lag of 14 for Airbus. So these are the lags that were used in the reconstruction. Now, the other issue is the choice of dimension, and the choice of the embedding dimension involves involving for this we can deploy or employ adaptive AI, involving deploying an adaptive artificial agent with a topological learning unit. So the issue is to find where the topological structure obtained from analyzing the attractors topological structure, or working with this attractors topological structure, with the reconstructed attractors topological structure, what is the embedding that leads to the best predictability? So to the best prediction performance, because if we find this dimension, we can then employ topological data analysis methods to characterize this attractor. And we know that we have an attractor where the topological information, where we got the highest exploitable topological information. Therefore, we got the best topological order in terms of the relation between the attractor and the target series, the series that was used for the embedding. So the choice of dimension involving adaptive AI involves or employing adaptive AI involves deploying an adaptive artificial agent with a topological learning unit, and it can be a radius learning unit or a k-nearest neighbors learning unit with a sliding learning window that tries to predict the next period's target series using the previous period's phase point for different embeddings. For each dimension in a set of dimensions, the R2 score, so the coefficient of determination can be calculated, and the chosen dimension is the one that leads to the highest value of the R2 score, R-square score. This means that the chosen phase space embedding is the one that has the highest exploitable topological information for the prediction of the target, which means that from a set of alternative embedding dimensions, one is using the dimension that has the highest topological pattern linking the reconstructed trajectory to the target series. In this case, we use the one period ahead prediction and the previous period's phase point. And here we see the optimal embedding dimension and the corresponding adaptive agents R-square. We use a sliding learning window. The sliding learning window is particularly good because the AI is adapting to attractors epochs. And in the case of turbulent data, it enhances the performance of the prediction performance. So the optimal embedding dimensions and corresponding R-square. We use the set of dimensions from 2 to 15. We tested these dimensions for an adaptive artificial agent with trend trading days sliding learning window. This corresponds to roughly 2 weeks of, so considering business days, this corresponds more or less to 2 weeks of trading. And the k-nearest neighbors learning unit setting k to 4 and using a Euclidean metric. We'll be seeing different values of k further on in the calibration of the number of nearest neighbors. But for now, so we are looking at the results, the main results for these different for this set of dimensions from an adaptive AI, an adaptive topological AI using k-nearest neighbors learning unit. The adaptive issue is linked to the learning sliding learning window, which means that the AI is adapting to attractors epochs. So this is relevant, a relevant point. And so looking at the dimensions and the corresponding R square, we can see that the R squares are high in general. So they are the lowest R square is for the Airbus with 50, still close to 60%, 57.51% R square. And in the case of the SPY, 58.77%. The Nasdaq is the high, and the Boeing have the higher, and Lockheed Martin have the higher predictability, all above 70%. And the Russell 2000, 67% predictability in terms of R square performance, which is high performance. In each case, we find that dimension with the highest performance is a lower dimension, is not close to 15, for instance. We have a 5-dimension where the adaptive agent got the best performance. In the case of the SPY was 5 dimensions. In the case of the Nasdaq, 8 dimensions. Russell 2000, 6 dimensions, 2 dimensions for Lockheed Martin, which implies in principle which is consistent with the map, with the chaotic map, so rather than a continuous flow, because with the continuous flow right from the start we have a fractal signal, so it's not a differentiable flow. The map is more consistent with the fact that we are dealing with discrete sessions, discrete trading sessions, and in the case of maps, they can produce chaos for 1-2 degrees of freedom. They do not need 3 degrees of freedom, 3 dimensions, to produce chaos. And in the case of Lockheed Martin, we have a 2-dimensional emergent attractor. For Boeing, 8 dimensions, and Airbus, again, 2 dimensions. So there is a high diversity in terms of dimensions here, ranging from 2 to 8. Interestingly, in the case of 2 of the aeronautical companies, we have 2 dimensions. So this is a very, very low dimensional. These are very low dimensional attractors. However, there is noise, and we know that there is noise because so we are dealing with stochastic chaos, because the R square is not that high. The R square could be not too high, also because of a strong largest Lyapunov exponent, but this is not the case. So this is actually linked to noise. We'll be seeing that in a moment. So phase 1 is complete. We have the lag, we have the dimension, we have the embedding. Phase 2, topological data analysis. So having the embedding, there are 4 analyses that we addressed in the article and that we'll be reviewing here. First is a typical chaotic time series analysis, which is the Lyapunov spectrum estimation. So we'll be seeing here, actually, in the article, you can see the Lyapunov spectrum, the full Lyapunov spectrum estimation for each of these attractors, which provides all the Lyapunov exponents estimated for these attractors, and the method is for the spectrum estimation is reviewed, and we also address the spectrum in detail. In this webinar, I'll be looking at only at the largest Lyapunov exponent to characterize chaos. And we find here evidence of chaos. Largest Lyapunov exponent is positive. We also address predictability performance and dominant dimension analysis, as well as k-neighbors graph analysis. So predictability performance and dominant dimension analysis will be looking at the adaptive AI. So this is smart topological data analysis, typical smart topological data analysis elements, combining machine learning, adaptive AI, and topological analysis. K-nearest neighbors graph analysis is typical topological data analysis, and these methods, and we'll be linking these, so these are not disconnected. The predictability performance will also be linked to the K-nearest neighbors graph analysis. So let's look at first. Let's look first at the Lyapunov, largest Lyapunov exponent coming from the Lyapunov spectrum estimation. So the largest Lyapunov spectrum the largest Lyapunov exponent is positive for all the series, but low. This lower value can also be linked to possibly to the noise process, but also to the characteristics of the process. The long memory, it's a process with long memory and a low largest Lyapunov exponent. Okay, so this can occur in the case of chaos-induced self-organized criticality. And we have here that a diversity of Lyapunov exponents, of largest Lyapunov exponents, higher for Lockheed and Airbus. The higher Lyapunov exponent is obtained for Lockheed Martin. Actually, Lockheed Martin, here is a low dimension and a high and the higher Lyapunov exponent, largest Lyapunov exponent. There is a certain diversity here of exponents, but all positive, which is indicative of chaos. There are actually different, the positive Lyapunov exponents are more than one in general, except for the case of the two-dimensional attractors, which have a positive and a negative Lyapunov exponent. But for the remaining series with higher than 2 dimensions, in terms of reconstructed attractor, they have more positive Lyapunov exponents besides the largest one. So this is Lyapunov spectrum estimation. So we know that there is sensitive dependence on initial conditions. And there is some level of noise also, which is consistent with stochastic chaos with also with external noise, which is expected. There are external shocks affecting the financial markets. One example being the SARS-CoV-2, the COVID-19 crisis. So now table 5. Actually, the financial markets performed well during the COVID-19 in general. In the case of technological stocks, for instance, they performed well. But looking now at the predictability, we have the R square prediction score. We also address in the article other predictability measures, including correlation, root mean squared error over the amplitude, and the explained variance and the R square. You can look at this analysis, this complete analysis in the article. I'll be covering here only the R square prediction score with the number of nearest neighbors. So this is used actually to both to characterize the predictability, but also to calibrate the value of K for further analysis using K nearest neighbors methods, namely in order to select the value of K for the K nearest neighbors graph. So we deployed the adaptive AI using and looked at how the predictability changes with K, with the value or with the parameter of K nearest neighbors ranging from 2 to 6 and using the sliding learning window of 10 trading days. And what happens is that we get an increase, in general, an increase in the predictability, and but the highest value, the highest predictability in the case of the SPY is for 6 nearest neighbors with the 60.34% predictability, which is a high value. Then the Nasdaq even higher, 63% of R square. The Russell 2000, 68.53%, also K equals 6. In the case of Lockheed Martin, again, K equals 6 as the highest performance with a 73.06%. And in the case of Boeing, it was not for 6, but for 5 nearest neighbors that we got the best performance with a 73.95% prediction performance. For Airbus, 58.82% with the 6, with the K equals 6. Now there are a few issues here that are relevant. First of all, the financial indexes. The Nasdaq has a high predictability, higher than 70%, And what financial theory would standard financial theory would probably would indicate was that financial indexes should have a lower predictability than, for instance, individual stocks that would have a greater, a stronger pattern. But what we find is the reverse in the case, for instance, of when we look at Airbus. Airbus has the lowest predictability of the group, um, although a high predictability, still near 60%, but has the lowest predictability of the group. While, for instance, we have the highest predictability is for an individual company stock, for Boeing. The shares stock market for Boeing leads to 73.72% in the Boeing series in terms of daily trading amplitudes predictability, which is the highest. But we get a high prediction performance also, and also for Lockheed Martin we have high prediction performance, which is consistent, but with the financial theory. But we have a high prediction performance for the individual indexes. Furthermore, Nasdaq has a higher prediction performance than Lockheed Martin. So this trumps a little the idea that financial diversification leads to a compensation mechanism in terms of one stock rising, the other falling, and would reduce the turbulence. Doesn't reduce the turbulence, and would reduce the predictability, both the turbulence and the predictability. This is not the case. We have a strong predictability here associated with financial indexes, greater than one individual stock in the case of Airbus. So now we can, in Boeing 70, actually Boeing being, but we also have a high predictability individual stocks, Boeing with a 73.95%, followed by an index, Nasdaq, followed by Lockheed Martin, and then Russell 2000, and then SPY. So we can see that there is a mix here. So this was used for choosing the value of K. It's 6 for the various for these various financial series, except for the Boeing, which has a value of K equals 5 as the best prediction performance. And this was used for the analysis of K nearest neighbors graphs. Now, next, using this value of K, where the agent has the highest prediction performance in terms of, from this series of values of K, ranging from 2 to 6, we calculate the permutation importance in prediction of the adaptive learner for the best performing value of K and extract the sequence of dimensions. What does this mean? So the agent is predicting the target series using an embedded a multidimensional embedding, and using the phase point for this multidimensional embedding. Okay, so the issue here is that we can extract the importance in prediction of these different dimensions, and under training, for a retraining of the agent, we can recalculate the permutation importance for these dimensions. So what was the dominant dimension used in each learning instance as the window slides during time? The main issue here is whether there is a dominant dimension for predicting the target, or in terms of phase space, or whether the dominant dimension changes with time. And we found that there is no single dominant dimension holding for the whole trajectory. This is very important because it means that we do not have an autoregressive process here. An autoregressive process would have a dominant dimension, as a stable dominant dimension as important. But we found here that there is no single dominant dimension. Even more, the transition matrices lead to which we estimated, and you can find this whole analysis in the article. We estimated the transition matrices took transition matrices for the whole series of dimensions, or for whole sequence of dimensions that we extracted using the permutation importance for the adaptive agent, using the optimal value of k from these different selected from this table, and for the values of k from 2 to 6, choosing the optimal as we explained. And we looked at the sequence of dimensions. So we estimated the full transition matrix and we divided it into two subsamples. And these two subsamples, we tested the chi-square to apply the chi-square test for the equality of the distribution for each subsample with respect to the full samples transition to the full samples probability. So what we did was for each of these, for the full sample, we extracted the equilibrium, Markov equilibrium distribution that would be consistent with that Markov transition matrix for the full sample. And for each subsample, which we divided the sample then in half, and for each of the two subsamples, each of the two halves, we estimated the transition matrices and calculated the corresponding Markov equilibrium distribution that would be consistent with each of those transition matrices. Then we applied the chi-square test and tested whether for each of these subsamples, the equilibrium distribution, the Markov equilibrium distribution, was equal to the full sample estimated equilibrium distribution. If we, and this is an important point, because if we do not reject the null hypothesis, then we have evidence of a Markov property, so of a Markov stability, that the distribution, the equilibrium distribution for the full sample would be equal to the distribution of each subsample. If this was evidence, would be evidence favorable to a Markov stability. But if no Markov stability was found, this is further evidence against autoregression or an autoregressive process. Another point is if Markov stability was found, but the probability, the equilibrium probability and the transition matrices for the matrix for the different dimensions, the Markov transition matrix would lead to no specific dominant dimension, but to a transition between dimensions. And we found that there is evidence of a Markov chain holding for the transition with the Markov property holding in general between the dimensions in terms of topological dominance in prediction of the target, which means that the process is nonlinear, and there is a symbolic computational basis that can be established with respect to dimension importance in prediction. Furthermore, we found that the Markov stability distribution is close to maximum entropy, which means that we have an almost equiprobable distribution, a near equiprobable distribution for the dominant dimensions. And the transitions, the process is persistent in terms of remaining in a specific in terms of remaining in the same dimension for the lower dimensional attractors, but in the higher dimensions, higher dimensional attractors, although the higher probability, the mode is to remain in the current dimension, if the probability of the overall probability of changing in terms of dominant dimension is greater than the probability of remaining in that dimension. So this comes from analyzing the transition matrices, and you can check it in the article. This is analyzed in detail in the article. So there is evidence of favorable to a Markov transition to a symbolic computational basis with respect to dimension importance, to dimension dominance And here in this case, we extracted what is the dimension that was more important. This is the signal. What is that dimension that was more important in prediction of the target for after each training instance? So we can see that along the attractor, the dimensions importance change. This is consistent with nonlinear dynamics. So a nonlinear dynamical system will have, for instance, cross terms with in the chaotic time series analysis. This occurs in a nonlinear dynamic, in a system on nonlinear dynamical equations. What happens is that the importance, if we calculate the partial derivatives, the derivative associated with a specific degree of freedom can change with time, either because there is a nonlinear dependence upon itself, a feedback, or because there are cross terms in terms with respect to other to the other degrees of freedom. And the degrees of freedom can interact non-linearly, which means that the derivatives will change with time, and the impact of a specific dimension in terms of topological, in terms of impact in the target series, or and therefore also in the predictability of the attractor, will change with time. So this is typical of a nonlinear process. So we have k-nearest, looking at the k-nearest neighbors graphs, which is the last analysis. We also show these graphs and analyze their distribution. They are, only one graph is scale free. The others tend to have to decay faster than do not have an exact power law scaling in terms of the scale-free structure. But this is so the graph degree distribution is analyzed in the article. But we also calculate two entropies, the degree entropy and the Kolmogorov-Sinai entropy for the graphs, for the k-nearest neighbors graphs, using for each series the value of k that was calibrated from table 5 that we show here, from the table 5 of the article. So here we show the degree entropy and the Ks entropy. The degree entropy is actually a relative entropy that was calculated with respect to relative to the highest entropy. So we have if it was equal to 1, this would mean that we had the degree distribution would be the maximum entropy distribution. What we find here is that the degree entropy is very low, so we have a topological structure in terms of the graphs, the k-nearest neighbors graphs, that is lower than maximum entropy. They are not maximum entropy graphs. On the right, we have the Kolmogorov-Sinai graph entropy calculated. So what's interesting is that we can use for these assets calculate correlations between the entropy values and the main attractors, main metrics that we found for these attractors, including largest Lyapunov exponents, the predictability expressed by the value of R squared, the Hurst exponents, and the dimensionality of the reconstructed attractors. And what we find here is an interesting point. First of all, the degree entropy is the more relevant entropy here in terms of relation with the attractors features. First of all, regarding the correlation with R squared, we find that the higher the degree entropy, the higher tends to be the R squared, with a correlation of 0.5361. With respect to the Hurst exponent, which is an indicator of SOC, we also find a degree entropy is correlated with the Hurst exponent with a positive correlation of 0.5732, but it is strongly negatively correlated with the largest Lyapunov exponent. So the higher the degree entropy of these graphs, the lower tends to be the largest Lyapunov exponent. And we find here an inverse relation between the degree entropy and the Kolmogorov-Sinai entropy. They are negatively correlated in terms and the Ks entropy is positively correlated with the largest Lyapunov exponent, strongly and positively correlated with the largest Lyapunov exponent. So in this case, the higher the Ks and graph entropy for these k-nearest neighbors graphs, the higher it tends to be the largest Lyapunov exponent with a correlation of a positive correlation of 0.7599. The attractor dimension is also, the degree entropy is also strongly correlated with the attractor dimension with a correlation of 0.8849, which is a very strong correlation. So the attractor, there is a strong correlation here between the graph degree entropy. The greater the graph degree entropy, the greater tends to be these attractors dimension. There is also another correlation with, so we have here already a correlation with self-organized criticality between the degree and the attractor's topological structure addressed in terms of the k-nearest neighbors graph, which provides for a graph. It provides for a graph analysis of the neighborhood structure of the attractor and the Hurst exponent with a positive correlation. The stronger correlation was for the degree entropy, positive and 0.5732, which links directly the attractor's topological structure with self-organized criticality metric. There is another correlation between the scaling exponent for the distribution and the degree entropy, which is minus 0.6315. So there is a strong negative correlation between the degree entropy and the scaling exponent for the probability distributions for the distribution of events. So that we calculated earlier. And so the higher the degree entropy, the lower tends to be the fractal dimension associated with the probability distribution in that power law scaling region. So this links directly the graphs, the attractor's structure, the attractor's topological structure with self-organized criticality. The Ks entropy is less correlated, it's positively correlated, but with a weak correlation with respect to the scaling exponent. So here the critical, in this case, the critical entropy is the degree entropy, and it is strongly correlated with it is positively correlated with the Hurst exponent and strongly negatively correlated with the distribution, with the fractal scaling in terms of the power law distribution of event size. So we have here a direct connection. We have uncovered here a direct connection between the self-organized criticality markers and the chaotic time series and the reconstructed attractors topological structure, which is an issue. It is an important issue regarding chaos-induced self-organized criticality. So these are major points regarding the article and the relation between chaos and self-organized criticality. Further research is needed into chaos-induced self-organized criticality. It's a particularly important field because many risk events have both signatures, can have signatures of chaos and signatures of self-organized criticality. And the link between both of them is also a link between the two major theories of relevance for risk science. And we need further studies in empirical data and also in models linking these two and how attractors' topological structure can be linked to the self-organized criticality's main features, main markers, including power law scaling in event size and power law scaling in memory. So this wraps up our webinar in terms of this phenomenon of chaos-induced self-organized criticality, observed in this case in stock market volatility, and in terms of and showing how smart topological data analysis can be a powerful technique combining artificial intelligence and topological data analysis when applied to chaotic time series analysis and to complex systems dynamics. So The links for the link for the article and for the other references in epidemiology will be supplied in the video description. And for today, we're wrapped up. See you next time for more more research into chaos, complexity, and self-organized criticality.